Welcome to Walls of Sound. Your hosts, Brian Teasley and Ryan Murphy, have spent decades on both sides of the stage, from playing in bands and running venues to uncovering the stories and history behind those spaces. This is the podcast where music meets the places that shape it. And here, they'll explore the people, history, and culture of music venues, how they're built, how they're run, and how they've created the soundtracks of our lives. From legendary halls to underground hideaways, these walls hold the stories that make music come alive. So step inside, because every wall has a story to tell.
We're here today for another episode of Walls of Sound. I'm Brian Teasley, and
I'm Ryan Murphy.
You know, we always say a special guest, but this is actually a very special guest. And we're here where Ryan and I reside in the great state of Alabama.
Amen.
In Muscle Shoals with Traci Thomas, who has a very illustrious career, from publicity to management to all sorts of entrepreneurial endeavors. And you guys have known each other, Ryan, you and Traci.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to remember. I've known Traci for a while now, at least like a decade, but I can't remember when we first met. I remember I was like terrified of you when I first met you, only because I was told to be. And then I met you and I was like, no, I love this woman. You have yelled at me a couple times, and each time it was completely warranted, which made me love you even more. And now you're one of the sweetest people I know. But yeah, we've known each other for a while. We've worked together for a while. Traci is one of my trusted friends and colleagues and has supported so much of the stuff we've done. So it's great to be talking to you, Traci.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words.
You know, this podcast is about music venues and live music culture, music scenes, and we were just talking before we started about you meeting Jason Isbell at the Slow Bar?
At the Slow Bar.
So that impetus really started at a music venue, right?
Yep, 100%.
So what was that night like? What do you remember from it?
It was like being in a clown car. Mike Grimes was one of the proprietors of the Slow Bar, and Truckers didn't have a booking agent yet, so they were touring with Slobberbone, and we were using their booking agent. And Grimey was not a fan of Slobberbone, and I had to sweet talk him to book the show. And it was like a clown car. Like if you would have opened up the door, people would have rolled out. Like that place was so packed.
Not at capacity, I take it.
Oh, way over capacity. I don't know what it would have been. It was a very memorable night, but that was the first night that I met my friend Jason.
Wow.
Yes, and I thank Patterson every year for that introduction.
Patterson's a good guy. Did you realize right then that this guy is special? Like this guy is on another level?
I don't know right then. I mean, that was the first day I met him, and I was, even honored to be working with the Truckers, and then to have this new, fresh perspective come into a band that was already so talented was mind-blowing, but he was also a little bit of a mess, so it took some growing up. One time the day he got kicked out of the band, I did offer to manage him, and he said no, and I was not a manager yet, but I just felt like his whole world had been ripped out from underneath him, and years later he said, I wish we would have got started sooner, but I guess that was on me. But I'm a big believer that things happen like they're supposed to, and he went through 2 other managers, and here we are. I
think Jason's career is, and maybe I'd be interested to hear your perspective on it, but it's a real example of trials and tribulations and hardship and a long path. But how could you change it? It seems perfect in the end, right?
No, I've even thanked the guy that didn't show up to a house party the Truckers were playing, and that's where he slid in.
That's right.
I was like, I know that's a very odd thing for me to thank you for. And I think Jason would have had a beautiful career regardless, but it sent him on his current trajectory. It's hard to go back and wonder what would have happened. Rob Malone didn't show up for a house party, and Jason slid in, and the next day did a photo shoot with Spin Magazine, and here we are.
Yeah, right. Were you always interested in being in the music business, or you started in publicity, but what were you doing before that?
I wanted to be an interior decorator.
I can see that.
That is what I started out in college. But my boyfriend in college was in the recording industry management program at Middle Tennessee State University. And I did not grow up around the business. But as I started getting a little taste of it, I decided if I had to work the rest of my life, that this music business looked like fun. So I changed my degree to PR. Also, I just really looked at it, and it was, this was late 80s, early 90s, where every corporation was, started adding a PR communications department. And I felt like if I couldn't get a job in the business, that this was a pretty transferable skill that I could use otherwise.
Do you think you took some skills from studying PR into the music world?
Oh, 100%. It was a straight PR degree, but emphasis in the music business and really focused on that side of it.
I see that personal, like just being that in touch with what you're pushing out there. But it's like you as a manager have always been so involved and so just like hands-on. Is there someone that like really inspired you to be that way? Was it intuition? Was it like something you transferred, or just you're like, this is the right way to operate?
I think it's just my intuition. And, earlier I mentioned like ways of learning how not to do business.
Yep.
And I think I didn't have a whole lot of mentors, but more of I would watch people, how they did business and how I didn't want to do business that way. And that was a real learning,
It's so true. I think about that because like how Brian and I talk about venues and the right way to run stuff. It's like there's so many examples of how not to, as opposed to how to.
Yeah.
And that's how you're actually being inspired.
Well, and my motto is you must be present to win. And it really just works in all aspects of your life, whether
So
you're
true.
at the movies or dinner with someone, put your phone away, have a conversation. It just works. And I've always believed in keeping our roster small so we can, whether it was when I was doing PR or doing management, so we can really give our artists the attention they deserve, because we ultimately work for them.
I love that.
I think I've heard you say that before, where be present, because you get a lot of managers that can do everything in an office and not be in the trenches, and they're not really seeing at an artist level what they're feeling, what's going on, like what the vibe is.
The amount of artists that reach out to me looking for new management and say that their managers don't even return their emails or phone calls.
That's remarkable.
But it's very common.
That's insane.
It's insane.
It's insane too. And I think, just talking about Jason's like life and career, which is very like his life, his personal life, so many things like what he's been through is known. To have a manager who's been there with you, who can also be a confidant, like a personal life coach and just a friend, right? So many people are out there on the road trying to make it. And like the mental health aspect of it is just horrific.
They're not machines.
They're not machines, right? So to have a manager, to have someone trying to steer you that you depend on and have them not really know the reality, it's awful.
I've said before that no matter what level you get, touring is a hard life. If you've got 6 buses or you're chartering planes,
I have so much respect.
It's
like,
right. It's not easy to be.
It's not easy. It's not easy at all.
It's lonely.
It's but it's part of what drives all of them. They wouldn't have it any other way,
Which is all, and I'm not talking about like Brian Wilson and Pet Sounds, but like it's always strange to me when the occasional artist isn't very interested in playing live, because when somebody's listening to your record, you can't be there in their house or their car or their earbuds, like being like, what are they feeling? But when you're in front of an audience, you see and feel what the people are feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I know the joy it brings me, and it's the same thing for them. Like, it just, it's part of what they do. It's just in their DNA.
Do you think there's a lot more value in winning fans organically, like on stages, as opposed to sort of, the speed at which some bands get big these days is very based on TikTok or hype or, but I'm not sure they always last based on that sort of velocity.
No, I say that we do our business in a much more organic and thoughtful way. Like, I'm a believer in the slow and steady builds a long career. And I think some of these artists that have come out of the box very strong and can sell all these tickets, they're dealing with some mental health issues. It's clear via social media, they don't really know how to handle themselves. And, it's very awkward for them too. But like, I don't know what that looks like for a sustaining career. I hope that they're all putting their money away because they're making it right now, but who knows if it lasts.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that, like the mental health aspect. And I'm curious if you have some good examples of places you've gone where you feel the people that run the venue kind of understand that too. Cause I think that's why, like for Brian and I to know, like we've been on the road, there's been to land somewhere where we go, oh, I can let my guard down a little bit. I feel like I'm at home. For lack of better, like these people actually paid attention.
Saturn obviously is one of the best examples of that. It's the way that a club curates the backstage that shows it just shows how much they care. And sometimes, yes, these are newer venues that had the luxury of doing a nicer space. But to me, it's the first thing the artists see, and it kind of sets the tone for how you're going to be treated the rest of the day.
I often say like Saturn's more, or at least with the backstage, is more of a product of me just wanting to do it like I wanted it one time. And there's so many amazing venues. And like anything, I've stolen personally from the things that I liked over a lot of great venues.
Sure.
But a lot of, it's something I preach to my staff, is a lot of people don't realize that while somebody may have driven 12 hours to get here, they may have broken up with their partner the day before. They
never know.
They may be sick and they've got to sing and their throat is not, like, you never know what they're going through to play for folks that night. I'm sure you've seen Jason have either being worn out on the road possibly, or maybe have a cold. It's hard to get out there and perform.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. Like artists just they don't have the luxury of having that day off. They have band, crew, audience, everyone, people depend on you, and you've got to power through. And then, bless your heart, if you're in a van tour, then you got to get back in the van and start driving halfway to where you're going the next day. Like,
Maybe
it's just like, I have so much respect for the artists that just the artists and the crews, like what they go through on a daily basis. Like, yes, ours has gotten a little cushier, but it's still hard to be away from home and in your families.
Yeah, all of it. Do you, when Jason tours, are you out flying with him some, or out on the bus, or?
Very little, really. Like, I believe one of my mentors was my good friend Norm Parento, who managed Old Crow Medicine Show for a long time. And, he always taught me it's really important to be in the major markets. So I do that. And then I also like to go to places I haven't been, or, meet a promoter maybe I haven't met face to face yet. Or sometimes if it's just been a minute since I've seen, I'm mama bear and, part therapist to a lot of them. So sometimes I just need to show up. And so if someone needs a conversation, I'm there.
So you're thinking strategically about like this tour, or like I've never been to this place before.
At the end of the day, it's back to the motto, but it's about like relationships and beyond an email. I just think that that's still very important. And I like to do business with people I really like, and I may not know someone well enough to know how much I like them until I show up, and then I'm like, oh.
I've always thought there's a different bit of gravity to the show too, when management, especially when a manager cares and they're at the show.
Yeah.
Like, in that way, the people that are at the venue and everyone kind of involved goes, wow, this is important enough, or it's a cool enough event, or the manager's here for a reason.
Yeah.
And I always like that because it adds a bit of like everyone's on their toes a little bit. Even more because they just want to show like management and artists, this is the best.
The first time I went to see S.G. Goodman, when Jay that works for me was looking to sign her, she was playing at the Basement in Nashville, and Grammy was doing sound. And before she goes on, he goes, must be something good about to happen. TT's in the house. And I'm like, wow, way to just like make her nervous.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Call it like you see it.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Wow. I've heard you say, and I'm curious of your compass, and maybe it's just a feeling, but I've heard you say that you don't really have interest in working with an artist if their songs don't make you feel something. Great songs.
To me, it's all about a song. I mean, I cut my teeth doing press for Guy Clark and Steve Earle. I was Sugar Hill's label publicist when Townes Van Zandt died. I learned to love a song very early in my career, and it's just really what it's all about. Like it's about the song. You have to be moved. It has to connect. It's, it seems very simple, but like writing a good song is not that easy. And writing a simple song is way harder than it sounds. I mean, I don't know as a songwriter, like I'm not a songwriter, but like it has to be about the song.
But how fortunate for you too, because in my opinion, you just named like three of the best songwriters I could possibly name.
Yeah.
With Steve, Guy, and Townes. It's
Daryl Scott, Tim O'Brien. I mean, I could go, Allison Moore. Like I could go on for days of like the great songwriters that I've had the pleasure of.
It's amazing.
Of working with. And so I think that's something that's definitely been a constant.
It seems like Jason's always had a appreciation for that generation of brilliant songwriters. I know he's very close to John Prine. There's sort of an artistry in artists that are younger or manager, being able to recognize that pedigree and channel that into their own thing. I think that's something really special about him.
Yeah. Well, I still remember my office was upstairs from the OG Grammys, and someone lets me know that John Prine is in Grammys trying to buy Justin Townes Earle's records, and they don't have them all out only because we were doing an in-store the next day. So I grab all the records and I chase John Prine out of Grammys saying, Mr. Prine. And so he'd bought some and I gave him what he didn't have.
Wow.
But, yeah.
That is amazing. That running after him, was a Good choice.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know each other yet. I, had the pleasure of getting to know him afterwards, but it was, I was like, I can't let this opportunity.
Well, Justin must have loved that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
How involved are you in choosing, say, a crew? Because obviously, like, a great song is a great song, but having that song sound great and be presented great in a live setting is similar, but it's like the next facet to presenting that song,
Yeah, I'm not as involved anymore because we have a tour director that really kind of deals with all of our crew. But our front of house guy that had been with us for a very long time just left us. But he was, in the beginning, he was the tour manager and front of house and driving the van.
That's right. He was all things.
Yes, got sideswiped in the going through a tunnel in New York, and he got arrested for an outstanding ticket.
Oh.
And then the van wouldn't start, and I got on the phone with my brother-in-law, who's a mechanic, because the van wasn't hurt that bad. We're like, why won't the van start? So I called my brother-in-law, and he shows me where the kill switch is under the dash, and I got the van started outside the Bowery Ballroom.
Oh my God! Yeah, that sounds like a real night. Just finding parking in New York when you're in a van tour.
He managed to hide to us for a long time that he had actually got arrested that day.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, we didn't know. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I always say you find out who's got a record the first time your band crosses to Canada.
Yeah.
And they're like looking it up and it's like, oh, you're not going to be able to go. It's like, and then.
Why didn't you tell us?
It's like, yeah, I tried to steal a Velvet Underground box set at the record store when I was a kid.
Or on the flip side, when I used to manage St. Paul and the Broken Bones, Jesse's from Canada and he would know some of the crossing guards.
Oh, that's nice.
That's a good end to have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know Jesse was from Canada.
Yeah.
Do you think, obviously there's a lot changing in the live music industry, but do you think small venues are still kind of the lifeblood of...
100%. I'm living here in Florence, Alabama, and it's one of the biggest issues I have here is that we don't have a club scene, and I feel like it's had a real effect on how the music scene here has not flourished like I would have thought it would have, considering that it's Muscle Shoals, Alabama, because so much happens on that club level. It's a community. Mm-hmm. It's an important part of the lifeblood to a real music city. You guys in Birmingham are lucky. You've got great venues. You've got Seasick, you've got Birmingham Mountain Radio. I'm like, that's the trifecta. Like,
that's true.
That's how you build careers in this business, is by having cities that have all those pieces.
Ryan, as always, you have as does so many people, you have a huge affection for Muscle Shoals. I'm thinking, because the recording history here from Fame and Muscle Shoals Sound, everybody knows it, is so immense. But why has it been that venues have struggled in Muscle Shoals traditionally?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too, in the way of like, why has it been so difficult?
Well, one of my perspectives since being here is that there was only studio business. There weren't a lot of other people like me in the business here.
That's right.
Like, to help facilitate that or foster that. I mean, it's 2 hours from Birmingham, Memphis, Nashville, Oxford. Like, it's a perfect router. So and a lot of the audience here is not programmed or conditioned to buying tickets on a regular basis. They're used to a lot of free stuff, but they'll drive over to the Orion or drive to Nashville to the Ryman, but they won't buy a ticket here. We also don't have great ways of getting the word out about shows. Like, we don't have a weekly. The daily paper hardly covers any music at all. The radio stations play the older stuff, but they're not playing a lot of the newer artists that are coming out and from this area. So there's a lack of marketing ability too. So it's a big question mark, one that I'm still trying to work on. What the solution is.
It's been oddly like siloed. Because I remember moving to Huntsville, and it seemed like it was going to be this massive task to try to bridge the Shoals and Huntsville. And it was just like, the Shoals is music, Huntsville's Rockets. Like, and, let's keep it that way. And I was like, well, Huntsville's only going to be able to do music if we're acknowledging the only people actually doing music in North Alabama historically have been, from the Shoals. Pulling that together, I like seeing that, like, we've been able to get that spark over here. It's like, I'm glad the studios are doing a little better. I think you being here is a huge piece of it. And then you start seeing, like, every time I come to visit, there's someone new from Nashville that's like looking into the area, opening something, looking to do something.
Yeah, like the guys from Single Lock tried to have a venue, but, I think it was hard. And then also, I think that the landlord didn't live here and didn't care about the building and expected them to keep up all the upkeep that just didn't make sense. Some guys in a band they changed their name, but that just had venue called On the Record.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But it also didn't make it. But I also, like, one night I was driving back from Nashville and Caleb Elliott called me and said, hey, are you going to see Melissa Carper tonight? I'm like, I don't even know who that is. And I put her on immediately, fell in love with her. Between Caleb and I texting people, I could everyone that was in that room was people that we had texted. And I was glad that we did, because the 10 people that were there were 10 people that wouldn't have been there if we hadn't sent those texts. But it's just a way of, like, I don't know how people know about shows, because we don't have the venue. We do have a great Instagram account called Muscle Shoals Music Now that just simply lists the listings of all of the venues, but most of it's like, it's a lot of just cover bands, people, just people playing the old stuff that was recorded here, which is great, but we need regular touring artists coming through here on a regular basis.
You would think with the Quad City combined population and the University of North Alabama, and like you said, the routing convenience, it's always, it's always been a big question mark over my head.
We're going to solve it.
You're going to solve it?
Yeah.
We all are going
to solve it.
You're not out of this, Brian. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. You're in this,
the collective, all of us.
I'm always up for a good fight.
Exactly. So. I need help.
I mean, even you doing the shows, I think if you could mention a bit about, like, where we're sitting doing this interview, it's cool what you and Alan have done here and, like, kind of the courtyard stuff.
Yeah, we're sitting at the Rocker Gallery, which is a gallery that was started by me and my husband. My husband makes, his name's Alan Daig, and he makes beautiful furniture, and mainly he's known for his rocking chairs.
Mm-hmm. Gorgeous.
So when we were looking to figure out a name for the gallery, oddly enough, Rocker Gallery was not taken on Instagram, so that's where we landed. And so we are also showing artists, people that are connected within the business that are visual artists. Like, our first show was with Pat Sansone from Wilco with his photography. Our current show is Danny Clinch. We have a courtyard where we're going to be having some shows. So it's just, bit by bit trying to tick away. And all of the turnouts we've had for our openings have been really great, and people are super appreciative that we're here and doing what we're doing. One thing I've learned since being here is, like, slow and steady. I'm used to things happening at a little quicker pace. And in some ways, I'm glad not more has happened, because we can really have a say in how it's shaped moving forward.
That's true.
And it could have messed it up. I don't know. It's a funny conundrum, though.
Do you feel like doing something that's community connected at a smaller space, that's like sort of an oddball art show and a small kind of back porch show with a bigger artist that doesn't get to do those things a lot? How much does that recharge your battery, so to say, and keep you inspired of, like, where everything started almost?
Yeah, but so my PR company was called Grassroots Media. So I still think I always go back to the grassroots way of doing things, because I think that ultimately builds a long career for an artist. And that's just what we're doing here, is we're trying to do things on a grassroots level and just build it from the ground up. It's not here, so, like, what can we do to make it better? It's almost like developing a new artist. I get excited about that stuff.
It seems like there's been a little recent trend of people being excited about doing things like that may not be the place you could sell the most tickets. And I know there's some social media push for some of that, because people find it interesting when somebody does a living room show. But it's cool that is becoming a trend, where, as opposed to calling a booking agent or manager and they're like, no, just doing sheds or whatever,
Yeah, I think Friday before ShoalsFest, we'll have Will Johnson playing in the courtyard and doing an art show. And when Will is not on tour with the 400 unit, he typically does house shows, and that's exclusively these days. And he just really gets more out of that connection. And I think there's so much craziness happening that the way I'm dealing with it is leaning into my community and figuring out how I can better the community, how we can help grow this music scene or art scene or whatever it is. Just things, there's a lot we can't control right now. I'm just putting that focus back in the community, try and elevate everything.
That's awesome. And I think a great example, because you mentioned it, if you want to talk a little bit more about ShoalsFest too, like kind of how it came about, that's really helped. But you and Jason doing that has, like, put a pretty big spotlight on the area.
We originally started ShoalsFest basically because there's not a lot of live music here. That so much world-class music has been recorded here, but we felt like that the area had been somewhat neglected or deprived of getting world-class live music. I remember that first year just being a complete wreck, just so nervous. Things I never thought about. But we obviously have to think about these days. And, and it's something that we really try and do for the community. But it's a community that, again, is not used to buying tickets on a regular basis. So it's like pushing a boulder up the hill. But as Jason likes to remind me, it is a celebration.
That's right.
This year we've got Jackson Browne headlining on Saturday, and Jason and his best friend, Chris Tompkins, that's what those guys grew up on. And now they're going to get to play in their hometown right in front of Jackson Browne.
It's incredible. It's like dream making.
Yeah. The first year I really try with the programming to have someone that had some roots, some connection here. So the first year we had Mavis Staples, and she had not been down here since 1972. And then I try and also give some music that people are familiar with, because, I'm trying to appeal to people on a larger level and try not, some of our friends, we love their music, but it may not sell our tickets on So then that first year that I had Sheryl Crow, and I think that was a home run as far as booking goes. And it was incredible. And then there was one year that we got married on the Thursday, and ShoalsFest became our wedding reception, and I just booked all of our old friends.
Wow.
That's a great one.
We had Slobberbone and the Truckers and Centromatic and...
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a question for both of you guys. There's so much going on with Huntsville and things that Ryan and Ben and the city of Huntsville have accomplished with their Orion, all the new movement there. Being that the cities aren't that far away and both in North Alabama, how do you think they could connect and, bring more artists to the area and be sort of symbiotic in a way, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think that is a work in progress. It's something Ryan and I talk about a lot and just trying to figure that out. But it's a big question mark on how to make live music work here still. And I didn't realize that would be part of kind of the mission once we got here, but it's become part of the mission. And, but also, again, trying to do it on a thoughtful
way. And you meet the hoods and the history. It's just like, I feel like I now have an obligation and duty. You spend that time with David Hood and you're sitting there and he's going down memory lane. You're like, you have to celebrate this as big as possible, because otherwise none of that can be lost.
I'm just postulating this here, but sometimes, and we struggle with it even in Birmingham sometimes. But for example, my first band, when we started in the 90s, even though we were from Alabama, but we'd have friends that would play and do 7 shows in Alabama, do Anniston, the colleges, Auburn, Huntsville, Tuscaloosa. And that doesn't really exist anymore. And I know, I guess what I'm getting up to is, do you think there's been a push toward mostly doing major markets? And obviously there's rising expenses, everything's harder to do, and you've got all these new things to think about with tech integration, and it's just more expensive to tour than ever before. Do you think that is why that trend is happening, or what's your thought? And also, what do you think are the biggest challenges touring now versus, say, 15 years ago?
I can't address the challenges of touring. I mean, one thing that I think we're going to have to look at moving forward is all the climate issues. I mean, the amount of shows this summer that we either had delayed or canceled, or all day there's nerves about if the show's going to happen. I think that's only going to continue to get worse. And I know we all want to be outside in the summer, but just it's getting riskier and riskier.
The amount of people that ask, why would you want to run a large outdoor, venue in the Southeast anywhere? And it's just like, having done it in Florida for so long, but the weather's getting so unpredictable. Yeah. It's wild. I think your other question, the first part of it,
one of 9.
Well, no. I was thinking about Alabama, because I do think about, even in a smaller, scrappy circuit, I remember coming through Alabama, Mississippi, different states. And they're like, oh, there's 8 different places you could play. And now it's such a struggle to identify. I know there's the consolidation of promoter stuff, but I think it's also there's not quote unquote promoters or people wanting to take the chance. Yeah. And so I think that's why a lot of the smaller clubs are even having to fight for it on their own and getting ignored, having to take all the risk. Especially in Alabama, I can't think of a lot of promoters who are willing to put 8 shows together for this band in Alabama.
As you've been in this business for the length that you've had, how important has mentorship become to you, where you kind of pass on some of your knowledge and skills to people that are underneath you? Or
very, very important. I've always felt I think it's important to give back. I had the pleasure of teaching at UGA a little over a decade ago, thanks to my friend David Barbie. and I taught their very first ever music management class. And one of my students is now our road manager. Shout out to Emily Dingus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's how that happened?
That's how that happened. So I think it's very important. Well, Emily doesn't have to stay in touch with me. She is in touch with me, but there's only one other student out of those 60 kids that I taught that stays in touch with me. It's pretty wild. But like anybody that calls me or DMs me, I am really good about getting on the phone, chatting with anybody that, is looking for advice. But Traci Berg just sent me somebody the other day, which I thought was really sweet because she knows a lot of people in this industry, and she knew a girl that had been working on the venue side that was looking to get into management and was happy to hop on the phone and chat with her.
I think that's amazing because I think in the South too, especially when you get outside of, maybe what you would call the industry cities, which is mainly Nashville and Atlanta. And it's part of why we do this podcast is when I was starting Bottle Tree and probably when you were doing DIY shows in Florida, it's hard to learn what's a rider? What's a versastill? There's this kind of mythos where I don't know if it's easier to learn now, because this was a time before the internet even. It still is, how do you learn that without having someone kind of take you under their, arm and say, look, this is how you do this. This is what works.
Now there's like Caleb Elliott's a local artist here that always sit, every few months we sit down and brainstorm. Like he just had some dates with the Shakes. So we came up with this cool, he emailed a bunch of agents because he still didn't have an agent. I was like, why don't we do this email of who the fuck is Caleb Elliott and how did he get these dates? Just to get people's attention.
Yeah,
whether it's industry people or other artists. Like I've been called the godmother manager, the fairy godmother manager quite a bit. So
that makes sense.
I take it there's probably been a lot of times where somebody is young and they show you a publishing deal or something and you're like, yeah, don't sign this.
Yeah.
I imagine you've prevented a lot of people from maybe making some mistakes that would have gone the other way.
So. But all you can do is give advice. You can't make them take it.
What do you look for from a large space, even to a small space? Yeah. What do you look for that you're like, this place is great. This place is at a different caliber than most places.
Well, I think it does start off with the green room, with the backstage area, because that's the first thing the artist sees. And to me, if you've taken great care, and if it's a new build and you've, taken great care in the green rooms and put, turntables or whatever, it just shows a thoughtfulness that thoughtfulness is just one of those reoccurring words with me that just, I want to deal with promoters or venues that are thoughtful, that aren't just that don't just use social media, that can think outside the box, that, that are real partners. I feel like it's us versus them sometimes when you're working with the bigger promoters. And it's just, it just doesn't feel conducive to the business that we want to do. And we want places to feel warm. Another manager friend of mine quotes this back to me. I don't know where Jason said this, but he said, I want to be able to play arenas. I just don't want to play them.
Yeah.
Because you lose an intimacy. Sense. So we do, that is important to us to kind of keep that.
Yeah, no, it's true. That us versus them, I hate when I see it because it's all of a sudden, it's like the venue pinned against the promoter, pinned against the artist, and it's I think if the venue's just trying to create the best experience.
Well, it's just like the issues that we've had with Ticketmaster in the past, where it's like they can control how many pre-sales we have. It's like, it's not Ticketmaster selling the tickets, it's Jason Isbell selling the tickets. And you shouldn't tell us when or how we can sell the tickets.
Yeah. That's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, totally.
That's what every staff at every venue needs to realize is we're not drawing the people.
Yeah, it's whoever's names on the marquee that night. They are the special guests. They are the why we all have jobs.
Totally. And that's a great, I think when I've gotten that clear to some of the people that I work with and that work with me, it's just that if you just as they walk in the door, the bus driver, the tour manager, everyone on the tour, it's like, we're all here today getting paid, having this great job and experience because your band, your crew are showing up today for this. It's just, and then you do the same thing with the customers and the fans walking in the door. It's the same thing. We're all there.
Yeah.
For that reason. It's just, how is that lost?
We always get tons of compliments on how nice our crew is.
They're very nice.
But it sets a tone. Just like when you get to the venue, whoever the first person you meet, that's going to set the tone for the day.
Yeah.
And, and whether it's bad or good, we still do our job the way we're going to do it. But, it makes it better when you're walking into a situation where you're meeting people on a level,
That's right.
and just being thoughtful with it.
I think, and I owe you this for sure, but one of the biggest pieces for me is the food people are eating, and I love, we were like we were just desperate to find a good in-house caterer at the Orion. And I remember I asked you about ShoalsFest, and you're like, well, it's the same person that catered my wedding.
Yep.
And it's Odette's, here in Florence. And like the amount of compliments we get because of Chef Josh's crew, and like, it's the service and hospitality.
Yeah.
Like how they even treat like the artists. It's not like a cafeteria. And the food is phenomenal. And it's always like, not only does he support local farmers and he does everything right, but the food he's cooking is very specific to North Alabama.
It's thoughtful.
And it's thoughtful. And there's been several bands that have tried to kind of steal him, take him on the road. And I said, absolutely fucking not.
That's the problem with having quality people.
I know.
It's like,
I know.
Yeah.
you have a great in-house lighting person or something. They're like, hey, our guy is actually. I do think there's a lot of things that I remember from being on tour, like special moments, especially with another band or with people at a venue, is this sort of rock and roll breaking of the bread. There's something special about having a wonderful meal on the road with people, even your own crew or whoever. That's just. It creates a sort of memory that just
such a human
lasts.
moment.
Yeah. And it's also, back to the whole backstage, but the food, like it just, because the bands, they don't have any other choice. I mean, granted, now we have all kinds of delivery services, but like, I don't think DoorDash is going to Red Rocks necessarily, but we don't need to because they provide incredible food. It's just like I feel like that's definitely one of those things that sets the tone of how the catering is.
Totally.
People also were talking about touring. You're stuck. A lot of people that go to a place are going to see your venue and maybe 2 streets around it, and they're there for 12 hours. And you have to be an ambassador for everything you stand for, including your city. And it starts with food. It really does, because we always, even for like smaller bands that don't have a big rider, we have a bunch of snacks out just to grab. If we can get people's blood sugar down immediately, they're going to be easier to deal with. And it's crazy. You put something in somebody's mouth and get them fed, and they're like all of a sudden more chill. It's kind of
but see, that's very thoughtful. Because nobody needs a hangry artist.
Gosh, it's the worst. I've been that person before. Let's talk about who else you've worked or working with now even.
Well, the current roster at TT Management is Jason S.G. Goodman, who has an incredible new record out that was recorded across the street here using the Muscle Shoals. We have a Shoals Economic Development has a music incentive that if you record in the Shoals, they'll give you up to 30% of your budget back. And that just got approved on a statewide level. And starting in October, you can double dip. If you record here, you can use the Shoals and the Alabama.
So you get 60%
You
back?
could get up to 60% of your budget back.
She's on tour now, right, in Europe, and then some dates coming up in the States.
Exactly, yep. She's done quite a bit of touring with Jason, too. Then we have Sam Evian, who is a producer and artist. He's currently on tour. His girlfriend, Hannah Cohen's out doing a bunch of touring. I think they're opening for Nathaniel right now, and Sam's out playing in her band. Peter One, amazing artist from Africa. Rich Ruth, who does really cool instrumental jazz work. Matt Ross Bang, who is a producer. And then Sadler from Jason's band also manage him. He does some producing. And then we have an amazing up-and-coming artist named Jolton Mayfield, who I think will be on everybody's radar very shortly.
I don't think it could be any more diverse.
Yeah, but it's also, that's our musical taste.
Right.
That's right.
It has to be within a certain wheelhouse, but again, it all goes back to that song.
Right.
Like, it's got to be about the songs.
That's true.
In a perfect world, what would you see for how a music venue would work here? Or, if you are ever involved in a music venue, like what's your ideal? What is your, if I build it, they will come?
Just something small and cool and just it feels like a clubhouse. One of the things that we're very interested in doing here is Nucci Space. If people are not familiar with Nucci Space, it's out of Athens, Georgia, and Nucci was a young guitar player that committed suicide, and his mom started Nucci's in his honor, and they offer free to low-cost mental health care for musicians. And that is something that Alan and I have pretty high on our agenda, is to try and figure out how we can open a Nucci Space here. And I've also toyed with the idea of could it be a venue / Nucci Space for now?
With rehearsal spaces too, and
yeah. There's maybe a venue across the street over here for sale that could be ideal. But yeah, just starting small, like, it's just like slow and steady wins the race, and just really starting it small and just really trying to build it. Some people tried to do an amphitheater here a while back, and it was just like, we don't need something that big yet. We don't know that we can sell 50 tickets on a weekly basis, much less 2,500 a night. And it's a very odd college town. I guess they go out late, and Meemaw here's already in bed, because it doesn't feel like a college town, like college towns I'm used to. So trying to figure out like what would appeal to these kids, I think would be interesting. And I don't know how it went, but first weekend of August, there was a Cable Fest, which was a hardcore festival at Norton on campus. And I still got to get with someone that went to that to figure. I'm very curious as to how that went over.
I think it's cool, it's just like people trying all sorts of.
Yeah, like we have this great, it's Ernest the Barber, and like Lee Baines just played there. I went one night, they did a Wilco night where everyone did a Wilco song. And it's just cool. Like, it was so intimate and so communal. Like there's amazing talent here, and it just, I hate that they all have to, really make all their money on the road because they don't have the opportunity to make it here. And I would like to help make that better for them,
The kind of space that you're talking about, I think, is so important for bands, because even if you're in the middle of a 6-7 week tour, having a reset where it all makes sense one day, and the people, like you've talked about how important the mental health of artists is to you. And I'll give you a dumb anecdote. A long time ago was watching some stupid History Channel documentary that was about, and it was this kind of scary stuff of how the CIA interrogates people, and they're like, we blast low rumbling noise, we mess with people's sleep schedule, we leave the lights on, we don't let them know when they're going to eat, and on and on. And I'm like, they're kind of describing being in a band. And there again, just getting back to how hard it is. And I'm glad that people like you and other people that are influential in the industry are starting to point out, hey, we're not treating these young people maybe in the best way that's going to have them become healthy long-term.
Well, there's an amazing company called Amber Health. It started off with these two guys, and now they've grown. I don't know how many people they have, but that is all they do. Like, I have them on speed dial. If I am having an issue, I will call them, and they go on tour. Whether it's, an artist that's recently sober, or, just, group therapy, like, they are really, really doing incredible work. And it's a shame that our industry hadn't had more of that until now.
Seriously.
But I'm really glad to see that their business is booming and building because there is such a demand.
That's fantastic. I had not heard of them.
Oh, yeah, they're incredible.
Great.
Yeah,
okay.
Billboard just recently did a nice piece on them.
Okay. Yeah. I'm always looking for that. That's great.
Yeah.
Traci, are there like the high water marks, the places, do you have your top 3 places that have made, because I know being able to go to Radio City Music Hall with Jason, or going to these places, are there the places that, wow, there's nothing like this?
Well, there's the Ryman.
Yeah.
We obviously have a very,
church,
but I still get chills walking to that building.
Totally.
Like, it never gets old.
Yeah.
Like, and whether it's like the Nick to the Ryman, it's the history of what came before us that,
I love that. Yeah.
And the fact that they've sustained all these years, at all the different levels. Like, when Jason's really good, a lot of times we go into a city, like we'll play Red Rocks, and he nods back to every venue that got him there in the city. They're stepping stones, but they're important stepping stones, and they're not stones for stepping on, because we want to, and we'll, we like to go back and play that. Like when he got put on the First Ave, when we got put on their Walk of Fame or
with
whatever.
The stars, yeah.
The star. We went back and played.
Yeah, that's cool.
People don't, apparently they don't do that.
Yeah.
But to us, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. You get your star, you got to play.
Yeah. And so we went and played a show. Like, yeah, we didn't make as much money, but like, who cares? Like, that was an important part of our economic growth in Minneapolis. It's very important to both of us. Like, like going back to the music towns, like we're the venues, and it's why we always cater to our record stores. Like, they're all part of the fabric of how we got here. And we have to keep all that alive, for the next generation of artists.
It means so much when, artists like Jason does. Yeah, Alabama Shakes just played the amphitheater in Birmingham, and they gave a shout out to Bottle Tree. There's probably 150 people in the crowd of thousands that knew what they were talking about. But for the people who did, you just got so connected through that acknowledgement, and it's cool that Jason's done that. And I think it's funny that I'm taking it somebody from First Ave told you, like, people don't usually do this.
But like the minute we heard, I was just like, well, we have to play there. We have to go.
Yeah.
Like,
of course.
it just didn't even cross my mind not to. And then people were like, oh, yeah, they don't do this. I'm like, well, why not?
We're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was one of those nights I loved it because I love being in a smaller place. Like, people didn't even go to the bar. They didn't move. They were so happy. They didn't have their phones out. They were just in the moment and so grateful.
It was special.
It was really special. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you have coming up or anything you want to let people know about before we sign off?
ShoalsFest.
And what's the date on that again?
October 11 and 12, McFarland Park, Florence, Alabama. We have Garrison Star, Dan Penn and Spooner Oldham, which that in itself is worth incredible. The price of admission.
That's right.
A great in the round with Patterson Hood, Jason Isbell, and Chris Tompkins, and then Jackson Brown. And then on Sunday, we have the mighty MJ Linderman with Waxahachie, and then Jason in the 400 unit.
That's not joking around.
It's not joking around. I don't mess around, Brian. Come on.
I know. No, I have learned that very quickly.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with MJ. We saw him in Brooklyn in October. I also love that he's already still doing underplays. And then we drove over to Proud Larry's to see him in January, I think for $15. We were joking we were going to be the oldest people in the room, but we weren't.
we had him at Saturn, 4 or 5 months ago. And
I think it was around that same run. Yeah.
Right when he was we could have probably sold 3 times the amount of tickets. And they were so chill and nice. And I really liked the records, but live, it had this rambunctious, like old school Replacements kind of like rock element to it.
It reminded me, I told Rusty, his manager, it reminded me of early trucker days when when Southern Rock Opera came out. And it's just like when Jason and the guys talk about playing off Broadway in St. Louis on the Southeastern tour, when they felt the shift. It was just like, it was the energy I felt of like the slow bar. That's what it feels like with MJ. And it was awesome.
He got a Saturn shirt from us, and either he liked the shirt a lot or he was out of laundry, because there was like 4 other shows on the tour where he was wearing it, and we were just like,
no, that's intentional.
So sweet. Yeah. What a great guy.
Well, and Jason Patterson, like the real musician, the real artist, like they're always wearing those shirts.
Yeah.
You think about it, and sometimes venue will reach out to me like Kane's just like, hey, I see Jason, he's getting a little old. You need a new one?
We need to give you an update.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's a great note to end on. And
thanks, Traci.
Yeah, it's so exciting to meet you and be around so many of the same people, especially back in the day. I'm old.
You are old.
I'm old. Yeah, it's true. Don't pull any punches, Ryan.